All right, you know what time it is. You know what time of the year it is. You know that means lists. That means year in review. That means looking back on 2022 and the music that came out, the music that it gave us. So let's just get straight into my favorite records of 2022. Here we go. All right, everyone. So obviously, slight change of scenery. There's a lot of construction happening around my shop at the moment, and it's super loud. I normally record these videos before the shop opens, so not really an option right now. Doing it at home in my home studio, my very modest home studio. And yeah, I'm here to talk about my favorite records of 2022. I just did a top 10. I didn't go crazy and try to do a 50 or anything, bigger than that. 10 is enough, but I liked a lot more than just 10 records this year. So up top, we're going to start with honorable mentions. Other records that I loved deserve some attention, but I won't be going as in-depth. Mitski's Laurel Hell, Dan Adriano of Alkaline Trio fame with his album Dear Darkness. Moonchild, Starfruit, Neo Soul outfit. Kendra Morris, also Neo Soul with her album Nine Lives. It came out on the Coal Mine label. That nearly made the top 10, and it maybe should have because we did do it in the Hybrid Record Club back when we were still doing the subscription service, but neither here nor there. The new Big Thief record, Pompeii by Kate LeBon, was a big one. That one definitely had to get some shout outs because I saw her live in San Francisco back in February at the Great American Music Hall, and it was incredible. Amazing live show. The Tim Heidecker record, High School, the new Jockstrap record, Sudan Archives, Natural Brown Prom Queen. That one was great. If this were like a just merit based, like production, whatever, blah, 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 then Domi and JD Beck would certainly be in the top 10, but that is not what we're doing. The new Always record, Blue Rev. Stump Work by Dry Cleaning. 2000 by Joey Badass. And then a little biased, and my bias is why I didn't put this in my top 10. Had to kind of edit myself a little bit there, but Ambrose Brown's new album, Bear. Go stream it. I produced a track on it. I play in his band. So yeah, definitely some bias on that front. But Bear is a great record, and the Bear Experience listening party thing was one of the coolest things I've seen an artist do this year, especially on the scale that we operate. All right, so honorable mentions out of the way. It's time for the top 10. We'll start at 10 and we'll get to 1. The order of these could change at any given point in time. In fact, the new Always record, I just recently kind of started listening to it. So I don't know, ask me in 2 months and maybe that Always album is in my top 10. It's so hard. The thing that lets you know an album is great is how it stands the test of time. And with doing these lists, especially with albums that come out in the back half of the year, you don't have as long to sit with them. And so it's tough to make these calls, right? So as of today, December 29th, these are my top 10 albums in this particular order. It could change tomorrow. It could change a week from now. I should mention very briefly that before I start this top 10 list, these are not what I think are the best albums of the year, whether they be from a production standpoint, songwriting, technical, whatever. These are my favorite albums of the year. My top 10 favorite albums of 2022. Okay, so at number 10, this is a record that I am kind of surprised myself that I put on here, but I put it on in the top 10 because it's a band that I'm not historically a huge fan of. Not that I actively dislike, but it's just not a band I find myself listening to a lot. But I did find myself listening to this record a good amount, and that is Clutch. The album is Sunrise on Slaughter Beach. Nosferatu Madre is a great. I mean, it has a lot of great songs on it, but ones that just kind of stick with you and make you want to like return to it. Um, and so I really, really dug that record in a way that surprised me, and that's why it comes in at number 10. Another album that surprised me is number 9, The Tipping Point by Tears for Fears. I remember when this record came out. I saw it in the new release solicitations when I was ordering. And I completely wrote, I'll be honest, I completely wrote it off. And I wrote it off because I was like, okay, here's this legacy group. They haven't put out an album in a while. Maybe they're like, hey, we're strapped for cash, let's put something else out. Of course, that's not the case. And even seeing interviews with them, they were pretty clear about they don't feel any point in making a record if they don't have some inspiration behind it. They're not just doing it for the sake of doing it. And that's very clear on this record because it's a fantastic album. I really, really, really liked it. It has everything you love about Tears for Fears. It's like dark and moody and synthy, and it has these beautiful, lush vocals. The production on it is fantastic. Just really, really dug it. And, I didn't even listen to it until months and months after it came out. I think I heard Timothy Omenson and Maggie Lawson, who were on the show Psych, praising it. No, actually, maybe it was James Roday Rodriguez that had tweeted something about it, something like that. The connection was Psych, and I saw them talking about how great the record was, which is no surprise. Kurt Smith guest starred on that show or made a cameo on it. They love Tears for Fears. But it got me thinking, okay, maybe I should give this a shot. Maybe I shouldn't be so humbug, so kind of pretentious about it, and just give it a go and see how I like it. And from the jump, I was like, okay, yeah, this record's great. All right, so coming in at number 8 on the Big Crown label, which also released a great Sonny and the Sunliners compilation this year, Mr. Brown Eyed Soul Volume 2. This record is Lady Ray, Piece of Me. On any given day, this and the Kendra Morris record could probably swap places. It could interchangeably, but the Lady Ray record, I just listened to so much and have DJ'd so, like I've got some of the 45s, I play through it all the time, and it's just so good. The lyrics are so personal. It's a very, very personal record, you can tell. It's about motherhood and, growing as a person and as an artist, and it's that classic, I don't know, second wave of neo soul, I guess, because it's not Soulquarians type vibes, but this thing that Big Crown and Coal Mine and some of these labels are doing with just these fat, punchy drums and like really like grooving bass lines, and it's just, the production is fantastic, the vocal performances are fantastic, the lyrics are moving. It is just an incredible record that I've listened to over and over and over again this year. And so there was no way that I was going to leave it out of the top 10 just from sheer, listening time alone, how many times I listened to it. So there's that. Coming in at number 7, we have a more recent one. Came out about a month or two ago, and that is Drug Dealers Hiding in Plain Sight. I really like this record a lot. I wasn't quite as taken by it when I first listened to it as I was the first time I listened to End of Comedy, I think is the first record's name. But it grew on me over time because I have a theory about this record. My theory about Drug Dealers Hiding in Plain Sight is the Hiding in Plain Sight title is alluding to the fact that this is a covers album of sorts. I know, sounds weird, stick with me. Not a straight covers album, but I feel like on this album, every song is a homage that has some kind of element in it that is referencing some of Drug Dealer's favorite songs. Now, for an artist that is kind of as indie and underground as Drug Dealer is, there's not a ton of like interviews and stuff like that out there about it. So I could be wrong. Or maybe he has already confirmed this and I just wasn't paying attention, but The opening track, Madison, has got to be a direct nod to Allison by Elvis Costello. And then there is another song, I think it's called like Hardworking Man or something like that, towards the back end of the record, that the second half of that song goes into this sequence that has to be a nod to Use Me by Bill Withers. It has to be. It's too reminiscent of it to not be intentional, I feel. And so that aspect of it, I don't have the musical vocabulary to be able to pinpoint what he's referencing on every single song, but because it happens more than once and because I feel like it's intentional with the album title, that's my conspiracy theory. Let me know in the comments if you think that it's true or not. All right, number 6. This one really... maybe there's a theme here with my favorite records of the year, and that I was surprised by them. I guess there, is something to be said about managing expectations, and if you don't expect a lot out of a record, then you're more likely to end up loving it. For instance, I'll tell you right now, Kendrick Lamar is not in my top 10, and I think because there was a huge expectation for that record, and it didn't quite live up to it for me personally. It's great, but it is a great record, but it's not something that makes my top 10. Anyway, so number 6 is Anxious, Little Greenhouse. This is a Connecticut emo band, and it's just what is the song? In April. I'm terrible with names. I really should have had it in front of me. But the song In April, I believe, was the first one I heard, and it just took me like straight back to 2012. And really, I turned 30 this year, and now with this Anxious record, I'm really having to grapple with my rapid aging, because a sound and a scene that I was a part of has now gone out of style and is coming back around again, like Title Fight, Basement, Daylight, which later became Super Heaven. A lot of those kind of emo pop punk bands that have roots in hardcore, they were huge in 2010, 11, 12, 13. And this is very, very reminiscent of that, but the music's great. Their videos are great too. So that's number 6, Anxious with Little Greenhouse on Run for Cover Records. Number 5 is Emily Nenny's On the Ranch. Another surprising find. I ordered copies of this for the shop as I was looking at the new release solicitations, and I think this just came out a month or so ago. But I saw this record, the cover kind of caught my eye, but what really caught my eye was that the indie exclusive version of it isn't just on colored vinyl like a lot of indie exclusive stuff is, but it came signed. She signed all of the jackets, and I thought, oh, that's kind of cool. I'll pick up a few just for that, and got it, listened to the whole thing, and I was just blown away with how great it was. It is true, like old school country music, early Dolly Parton, Loretta Lynn, like all of that type of stuff. If you like that old country, that twang has a little bit of swing to it, this record by Emily Nenny is fantastic. Have been listening to it nonstop since it came out. Just absolutely love that record. And again, Charlie Crockett, Man from Waco, could take this place as well. I left him out of the honorable mentions, but Charlie Crockett's a Man from Waco. Definitely deserves to be in the conversation of the best albums of 2022, because again, fantastic roots country. But this Emily Nenny record, if you haven't listened to it and you like country music in any way, like real country music, not this pop country crap that comes out these days, but go check that out. All right, number 4, Big Crit, Digital Roses Don't Die. Another one I'm kind of surprised made it to my top 10, because I listened to it a lot when it came out, and then I kind of hit pause on it, didn't return to it for a little while, but in my revisiting some notable albums of the year to make this list, I listened to the entire album from start to finish, and in one sitting. And I think maybe one of the reasons that I kind of found myself not returning to this album as much is because I didn't have a vinyl copy of it. I actually just recently found out that it had been released on vinyl and have bought one, waiting for it to come in. And if something isn't available on vinyl, or I don't have a copy of myself or in the shop, I tend to not hear it as much because most of my music listening happens between the hours of 11 and 7, Tuesday through Saturday when I'm at work. And I mostly play records all day. I don't really stream a lot in the shop. And so this one, when I did listen to it, it was in the car, or it was while I was doing something around the house or whatever. And so I was rarely listening to it from start to finish. And because of that, some of like the slower songs, the moodier songs, wouldn't hit as well. Like I'd listen to Road Clean, Just For You, Cool, and those are all upbeat, great, exciting, like fun songs. But then a slower one would hit and I'd be like, I kind of just still want that energy. Give me, Big Bang, or give me like some of this other more like hype kind of Big Crit stuff. But when you listen to it from start to finish, it really tells a story, I feel. It's, about love in the digital age. It is separated into these 4 parts. And for me, it kind of is telling the story of a relationship from starting at just kind of the infatuation level, then as things get more serious, and then ultimately the dissolution of it at the end. And I don't know, just kind of the way that everything is cemented in time in our minds because of, I don't know, there's the Digital Roses Don't Die thing. That motif is very clear, and like the way that Crit is kind of grappling with the role that technology plays in romantic relationships. There's really a lot more to unpack with this record than I think you would catch at first glance, and that's why it came up so high for me, because I'd been listening to it. I love the hits, like I love a lot of it, but then coming back to it again after some time of thinking on this phrase "Digital Roses Don't Die," I realized there was so much more to chew on than I had expected. For me, at least. I don't know. And also, Big Crit's last record, he started working with other producers, and he just seemed like he was like kind of on cruise control. And this record, it's rhymes by Crit, beats by Crit, all the production. And when he is producing his own tracks is when he is at his best, because he is a fantastic producer, really, really overlooked as a producer. But the beats, everything, he's singing a lot on this. It's great. It's fantastic. Love Big Crit. Really one of the most underrated hip hop artists currently, maybe of all time, really. I think him and Black Thought's starting to finally get his due a little bit, but those are 2 guys that I feel like get criminally overlooked when top 5 discussions happen. Black Thought's definitely in top 5. Crit is top 10, I think. I don't know. That's another video, though. All right, number 3, Black Angels, Wilderness of Mirrors. A band that I hadn't listened to a ton in the past. I didn't really start getting into psych until probably about 5 years ago, maybe 4. But it was around the time their last record came out. And when I was first getting into the genre, I was getting into the old stuff, like I was discovering the CA Quintet, Morgan, obviously bands like 13 Floor Elevators, Bubble Puppy, all of those kinds of bands. Beefheart, I would put into that category as well. So I was getting into that kind of stuff, and hadn't gotten to the point where I was seeking out like newer psych bands. So I just never gotten around to kind of checking out the Black Angels, even though they're, Texas, and, we love a Texas band. But this new record came out, and it is just, it runs like the gauntlet of different styles of psychedelic music. Like, you got a song like The River, which is like a killer track. It's real trippy. Some of the songs on the kind of first like third of the record too also have some really great like fuzzed out bass, really killer stuff. But then you get like the title track, which reminds me of King Giz a little bit, maybe some of the more like progressive sounds or tones that are on it, but it's still like much more rooted in the 60s original psychedelic tradition than the King Giz stuff is. And that's another one. I just kept finding myself, I'd put it on in the shop over and over and over again, to the point where like now I don't have a copy of it because I was playing it in the shop and I was playing my copy and someone was like, "Oh, this is great. Is this for sale?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure. I guess I can get another one. Hopefully I can. I haven't tried yet, but yeah, Black Angels, first album in 5 years, fantastic. If you like heavier, darker, explorative psychedelic music, psychedelic rock music, then you probably have heard this record already, but if you haven't, go check out Black Angels. Number 2 was one that I came to super late, kind of just like, I mean, even later than Tears for Fears, which took me like 2 months to get to, but this one I just in the past like 2 or 3 months started listening to a lot and have gotten kind of obsessed with it. Part of it is how incredible the opening track is, but it's the self-titled album from Wet Leg. Being in Love is just like, it goes from these really kind of more staccato, tight grooves from the verses and an almost spoken word kind of singing to this like huge, just lush chorus that these great vocal harmonies, huge guitars, like wide open drums, and then even a song like Chase Lounge, which is the second track on the record. Upon first listen, I was like, I'm not sure about this one. The first one, yes, all ins. This one, but even that one's really grown on me. Like, I love that song now. Wet Dream, I mean, the whole album front to back is amazing. And yeah, one that kind of crept up on me, but that I have just been loving these past few months and have been listening to a ton. All right, coming in at number 1, Mountain Goats, Bleed Out. I've probably listened to this record more than any other record this year. Again, just like with Wet Leg, it has this incredible opening track with this big mission statement. I'm doing this for revenge. The whole band kicks in after a kind of palm-muted guitar intro. And this is the most aggressive that I've ever heard the Mountain Goats. And it's amazing. John Darnielle is really committed to the concept album thing, and I love it. It was produced by Alicia Bagnano, who is in the band, sings in the band Bully, plays guitar, writes. She interned with Steve Albini, Alicia Bagnano interned with Steve Albini as an engineer, and she engineered and I think mixed and recorded the first Bully album, Feels Like, I think is the name of the record, which is a fantastic album. And she follows in that tradition of Albini, at least with the Bully stuff, of all analog tape, that kind of thing. And with this record, even though she wasn't the recording engineer or the mixer or the master or anyone, or at least not that I am aware of. I know mix and mastering were somebody else. Maybe she did engineer it, but her like stamp on this record is like so clear because she really brought that kind of angst out of the Mountain Goats that we don't always really get. And also having her as kind of like a creative guide on an album that is essentially a heist film, but in music. I think, the kind of edge that you want from a good heist film and, something more kind of action-y, she really brought that to this project in a way that I think just like, it's my favorite Mountain Goats album at this point, and it's just so good. I listen to it over and over again. It has so many great songs. The song Hostages is great. Like, there's just so many amazing moments on this record musically, but especially lyrically, where we get these incredible refrains from Darnielle where, like I said, the mission statement, the opening of the track, I'm doing this for revenge. I'm doing this to try to stay true. I'm doing this for the ones we had to leave behind. I'm doing this for you. But then you get like a song like Hostages, where the refrain in that song is, "We may run out of bullets, we're never going to run out of hostages." Incredible. There's a song, the song, I think it's called "Guys on Every Corner" is the name of the song, but the way that he sings it is he says, "I've got guys." And then there's a big pause, and he says, "Guys on every corner," and it's funny. It has like that. The lyric "I've got guys" on its own, out of context, is funny, and that's what you first get. And so you still have some of that kind of tongue-in-cheek playfulness that Darnielle brings to his lyrics and his songwriting in this, but also that grit as well. That kind of intensity. And then the closing track, "Bleed Out," the title track, does kind of remind me more of like the Goths era Mountain Goats. It's a little more low key, but it's just so good. The whole album is so good. I love it. It caught another one, again, through line here, caught me by surprise. Over the years at my shop, in my market, the Mountain Goats aren't huge sellers. We'll do okay sometimes with like All Hail West Texas, but that's really about it. Even Goths, when that album came out, I kind of had to like force it onto people because I loved that record, and I kept having to say like, "Hey, yo, you guys got to check this out. You got to check this out." So I didn't stock it when it came out because Goths hadn't fared well. The Dungeons and Dragons concept album didn't do super hot, but again, a couple months after its release, I was like, I can't. Oh, it was actually, shouts out Alamo Drafthouse, because they used the opening track training montage in one of their pre-show things. And I remember listening to it and being like, okay, that sounds like John Darnielle. Is this the Mountain Goats? This sounds kind of like hard for the Mountain Goats. And then sure enough, at the end of like whatever the little PSA or ad that they had was, popped up, "Mountain Goats now available on Merge Records," the album "Bleed Out," and it's got this very like Italian neo-noir kind of cover to it. Just fantastic record, love it. If you haven't listened to it, go check it out. The packaging that they did with Merge, I mean, they always have great album art, great packaging. They seem to be really committed to the 45 RPM bit at this point. All of their records now, for the last, at least since Goths, I think, are coming out on double LP, cut at 45 RPM, which I love. Incredible sound quality when you cut at 45. But yeah, number one with a bullet, the Mountain Goats, "Bleed Out." Also should mention the new Beach Bunny record as an honorable mention. That one was really good as well. And I'm sure there's some others that I'm missing that I listened to that I liked, that it's just so, for me, it's so daunting to make these lists. Like, as soon as 2023 hits, I'm going to do the same thing I always do, where I'm going to try to keep a running list as albums are coming out, and then at a certain point, I'm going to forget to keep adding to that list, and it's going to descend into absolute chaos, and then I'm going to be in the same boat next year when the time comes. But that's it. That is my top 10 as it stands today, and I hope that maybe if you haven't listened to some of these, you'll go check them out and enjoy them, or if you have listened to them, that you've enjoyed them. And we'll catch you in the next video next year, trying to keep the momentum going, trying to keep posting every Friday, and I think 2023 is the year I'm gonna stay consistent. I hope. All right, we'll see you later.